I love what I call the brother chords and what I believe Barry Harris used to call a family of dominants, and I think he called them brother and sister sometimes. But what they are is they're a set of 4 chords that we call a family of dominant chords that play together. Barry used to say you play with your family first, right? So I'll show you how they all work and what you can do with them just to get you started, an introduction to it. We teach this much more deeply on Jazz Skills, but what you can do is get sounds like this on a G7, let's say. Or we could have had, let's say, or all kinds of stuff on that G7, which we don't even have to start thinking about long extensions either to do it, 13, sharp 11, flat 9, all that stuff. This is just a family of 4 dominant chords. So how does it work? What you do is you begin by saying, okay, G7. You need to be at least what I would call upper, intermediate to advanced to do this. I call them level 3s. But if you followed my videos on voicings before, you probably know that on a G7 you can raise the root in the right hand to get a diminished chord, A flat diminished in this case. But if you now look at that diminished chord, it gives you 4 different dominant chords just by moving 1 different note each time. So the first time I'm going to move down the A flat gives me a G7. Now if I move down the B to B flat, hopefully you'll recognize this is an inverted B flat 7. If I did that by inverting the diminished and then moving the B, you'd probably see that easier, many of you. But anyway, that's B flat 7. So you've got to be able to recognize these, right? If I lower the D, we'll get D flat 7. If I invert that D flat 7 to its root position, it might be easier for you to see, depending on your level. And then if I lower the F, I'll get E7. And once again, if I invert it, some of you will find it easier to see like that. But I would say it's really important to be able to see all of those in whichever inversions they're in, okay? That's something a lot of people struggle a bit with. If you're enjoying this lesson, would you please give it a like and subscribe to the channel, hit the notification bell so you know when there's a new video. A positive comment in the comments section really helps as well. And if it's time to level up your playing and get some freedom, then consider joining us on Jazz Skills. More about that at the end. For now, let's get back to the lesson. Now we have the diminished, which of course is 4 diminished, right? If you know anything about diminished chords, then inverting the A flat diminished gives you 4 different diminished chords. It gives you A flat diminished, B diminished, D diminished, and F diminished. So of course anything I can do to it once can be done to it 4 times. So if I can move down a note once and get a dominant chord, then I can move a note down 4 times and still get a dominant chord, because the diminished is a uniform thing. All the notes are equidistant. 1, 2, 3 half steps, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3 half steps. Or minor thirds is a nicer way to say that for musicians. From there we have our family of dominant chords. So if I have a G7, maybe I'll take the shell in the left hand for me at the moment, root and 7th, and I'm just going to put E7 on the top, like that. Great, that's a chord. Now yes, some people are going to call that a 13 with a flat 9, but for me it's just G7 and E7. There's my G7, there's my E7. By the way, that reminds me of Savoy, right? There's a tune in that. It could have been a different note moving down. It could have been the D moving down to D flat, which gives me D flat 7. If you've noticed by now, that new note becomes the root of a dominant, right? So when I moved the F down to E, the new note, became the root of E7. Put it back, move down the D, becomes the root of D flat 7. So that's another easy way to find these. That's G7 with D flat 7. Now, of course, some people are going to say, whoa, hold on, I can see the comments coming below. Hold on, why isn't that G7 with a flat 5 and a flat 9? Sure, I haven't got a problem with that, or with you. But let's say I took this. I'll begin with the F moved down to E. And then I'll put it back, but I'll move the D down, because that's in our family as well, isn't it? So I end up with this. And I'm not repeating everything like this. I'm just replacing the E back to F, because I began with the F moved down to E. So I'm going to put it back and lower the D like that, but hold everything else. That is what Barry showed me is the beginning of My Romance. Beautiful. When he showed me that, I thought that was wonderful. So that leads to movement as well. Or if I was playing a 1-6-2-5, in that much time, I'm not thinking G7, G13, flat 9, G13, G7, flat 5, flat 9, C major 9. It's just a movement for me within this process of finding and knowing brothers, okay? So a tip for application. I use these a lot when the dominant is going home. In other words, G7 is going home. For me, home is down a fifth to C major or C minor, minor 6 or minor 7th, right? And what you do is you can look for the melody note and make sure that stays intact and just move something else. So for example, in My Romance, what we had was we had the shell. The first note was E, so it makes sense that the F will move down to E. In fact, this is the pickup in the song. There's actually no chord written, but sometimes rather than play, because the first chord is C, we'll put a G7 there, because G7 leads to C. And we were also, in this case, able to use some brothers to do it, right? So the melody is E, and which brother or brothers have E in them? Well, we don't want to move down the A flat because that's just another G7. That's going to make things less interesting, not more, right? B flat isn't going to give us the E in it. B flat 7, neither is D flat 7, but E7 in this case will. So that's the obvious choice for that first note. Now for the second note, could just move it back to the diminished like that. That would have been okay as well. Nothing wrong with that. So we have options. Options are great. However, what has the F in it? Well, G7 does, but again, we don't want to move back to G7. We've already got one. We're trying to make things more interesting. B flat 7 would be okay. Let's see. Yeah, let me do that better. It's okay. The more I play it, the more I'm sort of making a deal with what to soften in there and just try and get a better sound. Fine. Or the other option is the D flat 7, which I really like. And that's a quick introduction to brothers. Incidentally, My Romance is a tune taught in detail on Jazz Skills, so we've got a smart tune that transposes to several keys. You can play with my playing or remove mine. We've got lessons on how it works and how to get the right hand chord melody in there, simple voicings, and then more complex advanced movements, Barry Harris style, and voicings as well. If it's time to level up your play, then consider joining us on Jazz Skills, where we won't just drown you in a sea of information, but we'll focus on your transformation and what to do at different stages in your play, how to practice it, and support from me and a vibrant community as well. So hope to see you there. Thanks for watching, and bye for now.